All right, everybody. Well, we are now in the iFiber One News Radio green room, and we're trying a new style of interview. You'll be able to see it in the video when we post it later today. The Sheriff Sit Down, brought to you by our Community Credit Union. Again, I'm Jeff Slakey, along with Sheriff Casey Salisbury and Kevin and Maxine. Maxine is one of the newest additions to the jail. Good morning, guys. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
Casey, tell us a little bit about this program, how it all gotten started.
Well, as you know, Jeff, you've been in the jail, and tensions are high. There's a lot of people. It's always full. I met Mr. Sweat a while back, and we were talking about the capability of these dogs, mainly for child interviews, and he takes them to the hospitals and everything else. And I brought up to Chief Hansen the idea of, wouldn't it be neat in our jail to try out, be the first ones in the state and probably in the country, to bring in a dog and see what the reaction is if it calms some tensions in the jail. And so kind of experimentally, I approached Kevin, two Kevins, to see if he would be interested in giving that a try. And Kevin brought Maxine down for the day, and the difference in moments in the jail when we go into the different cell areas or with different people, the tension level just went down, and it was actually quiet.
Wow.
Never seen it quiet before in different areas. And so tremendous thing. So we decided we're going to give this a try. And it's just worked out fantastic. You've never seen anything like it, and I think it'll be the wave of the future.
Kevin, what's your background in this and with service animals? And was Maxine trained to be this type of calming effect in jails or in another situation?
Maxine's actually owned by Canine Companions for Independence out of Santa Rosa. And long story short, about 20 years ago, we went down to San Diego. One of my customers was a volunteer with CCI, and she goes, you got to come down and see what we do. So my wife and I flew down, went to their auction, and there was people in wheelchairs, there was people with walkers, every kind of disability you could probably think of, except for sight. We don't do sight dogs. And I was talking to a gentleman in the wheelchair, and I said, well, how do you not run over your dog?
Sure.
And he says, the dogs are trained to do that. And I kind of looked at him, and yeah, right. And he says, do you have a dime? And I said, yeah. He goes, drop a dime on the floor. And I dropped a dime on the floor, and he gave the dog the command to pick up the dime. He did, brought it over and put it in his hand. A dime.
Wow.
And we have 3 dogs at home now. We have Chauncey, Baxter, and Maxine. And Chauncey, who is not with us on this program, when he goes to work with me, he'll go through and pick up every paper clip that's in the office, and he'll bring it to you. He doesn't swallow them. He doesn't mouth them. He brings them over and gives them to you because he's a retriever. He's supposed to be picking stuff up.
Wow.
And we get bored during the day. He wants something to do. We'll give him an envelope, and he'll go desk to desk with it, drop it off, grab one from there, and go to the other place. And he'll just keep going around the circle.
How much training is involved with these dogs?
Well, we get what happened with the San Diego thing, we thought it was pretty cool. And then we had 2 dogs that were 15 years old, golden retrievers, and they passed within a couple of months of each other. Okay, now we have this big void in our lives. Do we get another dog? Don't we get another, what do we do? Our youngest daughter was ready to go to Washington State in 2 years. So we thought it over. And the way the program works is that you get a puppy at 2 months old, and you have it until about 18 months. And then it goes back for advanced training down to Santa Rosa. And so we talked it over, and it was a very thorough question to get the dog. They do a phone interview, they do a paper interview, then they come to your house to make sure you have a puppy-friendly house. You have to have a backyard, you have to have a fence and all this other stuff. And so we ended up getting a dog, and the woman in charge of the puppy program says, we're going to send you a yellow lab named Lily. And I said, no, I don't want a female. I want a male, and I want a golden retriever. And she goes, it's about 6 months out, and this is the dog you want.
Yeah.
This is a perfect dog. And it turns out with the heritage of the dog goes way back, and this is a perfect dog. So they sent her up to us, and came in Alaska Airlines from San Francisco, and you pick her up there. And when the breeder caretakers, they have the dogs till they're 2 months, they go back to Santa Rosa, and there's 3 days of tests, quick medical tests and everything else, and the dogs are also tattooed in the ear. And so here's this yellow lab coming in, and she's got blue ink or green ink all the way down the side. Looks just terrible. And we took her home and just melted.
Oh, wow.
And so for 18 months, I think it was on Wednesdays, we'd go up to Woodinville and go to puppy class. And it was probably anywhere from 5 to 30 people in the class doing the puppy class. And it's, if you're living in Belfair, it's quite a jaunt over to Woodinville.
Yeah.
Especially with the traffic, it could be 3 hours getting over there for an hour class, 2 hours coming back. So it's an event.
You have to really be invested in this too, then.
Oh boy. Well, one thing about it with Canine Companions, you pay for everything.
Wow.
You pay to get the dog up here. You pay for the food they tell you to take. You pay for all the vet bills. If something goes wrong with your dog, you take it to get it fixed, and you pay for all the vet bills.
How much time before between the initial thought that this may be a good working idea and when the dog first entered the jail, how much time was in between there, and how much training was needed, and even for yourself, I would imagine bringing Maxine into an unknown situation like that for yourself would even be a little nervous for you.
Especially going into a jail.
Yeah.
What's going on here. Maxine's actually 8 years old, and she was assigned out of doggy college, we call it, to a woman with cerebral palsy in Redwood Valley, California. And this woman was 24 years old, 95% disabled. All she could really do was sit in the chair. And Maxine was so in tune with her. She was 24/7 with Maxine. When her bandana got wet from drool, Max would go to where the bandanas are, get another one, and bring it to the caregiver.
Wow.
So she would know she had to be cleaned up. She would also be able to, the gal had an iPad around her neck, and somehow she could put a different scene on there. And if she wanted to go through the door, she would push somehow that the door would come up there. Max would see that, and Maxine would go open the door.
Oh, my
I
goodness.
mean, it's just phenomenal. So we're about two years into this, maybe 2.5 years, and there's another dog company over in Hawaii called Assistance Dogs of Hawaii, and this woman specializes in scent dogs and different kind of scent than what the sheriff's got. If you have cerebral palsy, you have multiple sclerosis or whatever, you're going to get sick before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they detect this, the dogs do, is that they smell the disease in your urine.
Wow.
And they will go in the bathroom with you, and if they smell something and you're nonverbal, you can't talk to them, they'll go alert the caregiver that, hey, they'll kick you or whatever, hey, there's something wrong here. Then you go to the doctor. And the important thing with that is it could cut 3 to 6 months off the period where you're ill. And this girl ended up in the hospital down in California and actually died of, I think it was a urinary infection first, and then it just spread throughout her whole body. Had she had the other kind of dog that could have detected that, it would have probably saved her
Wow.
life. You don't know what's going.
These dogs are amazing.
So she passes away. We made arrangements with Canine Companions to get the dog. Maxine has a liver disease, copper retention disease, which is a very painful death, and her mother died of that. And so the woman who had the dog says, I can't afford the medication. I can't afford this and this and this. Would you take her? And my wife was on a plane to Santa Rosa the next day, picked her up and brought her home, and she's been with us ever since.
Let's talk about the first day Maxine comes into the jail. What's it like for both of you guys seeing this?
Well, I think it would be more of a transition maybe for Kevin, not having been in a jail before.
Right.
But, and the dog both. And it was just an interesting thing, an interesting dynamic, because we just kind of wanted to see how this would work. And so I asked Kevin to come in, and the dog had no problem with it. Kevin came in and immediately he's very personable. And immediately a number of the inmates were questioning whether it was it was a police dog technically. And once they found out it wasn't, Kevin would just sat down at the booking counter with one person at the bench there, sat down with the dog, and just watch the tension and the bad attitude leave, and the number of people that would kneel down and pet the dog, a couple of them with tears in their eyes, and says, thank you for bringing her in here.
Wow.
Please bring her back. You asked about like a transition. There really wasn't one. We went upstairs to work release, sat down with a few of the guys up there. They were thrilled that Kevin had brought the dog in. It's really nice to just have a chance to have a regular conversation about a dog, something that, unapart from where they've been and where we're at, and to watch the tension go down in there was absolutely amazing. We went into one cell that even the corrections folks were a little concerned. A person had very severe mental health issues and very anxiety and very disruptive. And we opened the door, and immediately that person went down to their knees to the dog, began petting the dog, and was totally quiet.
Wow.
So it's amazing, the transition. I really think that, I really appreciate first that Mr. and Mrs. Sweat have put their time, energy, effort, and finances behind this, because I believe it's a huge help for our jail. And I think this is going to take off. I think you'll start to see other people look at this if they can come up with a way to do it. It's just a wonderful thing for everybody.
Are you looking to maybe get more dogs like Maxine to help out other jails like this?
Well, the one thing, let me look back to your question.
Yeah.
When we first went into the jail, I was pretty at ease because I had the number one guy with
Sure.
me, and I had the jail chief with me, and I think the lieutenant was there too. Nobody's going to assault
Right.
me, you know.
Right.
If you are, you are. You should be. You're an idiot. And we went into the first couple cells, and there's guidelines for what I can do and what I can't do, and we're pretty conscious of that. And we went into a couple different cells, and it was like Casey said, it was just amazing that people were so in awe. And it was a big thing. Is this a drug dog? Are you in here just spot checking
Sure,
to see what's
sure.
there? And I said, no. And I said, volunteer.
Yeah.
I have nothing to do with it. And it's kind of funny, too, because people complain to me, there's no hot water.
Okay.
Maybe you got to go home. Why are you here then?
Yeah.
And but I said, no, I'm a volunteer. You need to talk to somebody else. And the guard, of course, takes down the information
Sure.
like that.
Sure.
But it was pretty phenomenal, especially the woman we went and saw. She was obviously pretty distraught when we went in there. She'd been in the cell for probably a good week anyway, and she was looked like she's been in the cell for a week and never come out, kind of greasy and the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
And when she saw Max, she was down, and she sat in her bed, had Max do a lap across her lap, and sat there and held her for, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe. And you could just see her start to relax. And, this is no cost to anybody.
Wow.
And if you can do that, we're just so far ahead. You can see how excited she is.
Well, I'm certainly glad to have Max in here today and to meet you, Kevin, for sure. This is a great program, and it seems like you're right, Sheriff. This will take off as more folks hear about it.
We had some pretty good guidance, too. When I met Mr. Sweat, he invited me to meet with some acquaintances of his, one of them being the former senior deputy prosecutor for King County, and another person that's probably one of the top veterinarians in the country on these kind of issues. And we invited them out, and they addressed our morning law enforcement group and explained, the legal aspects of doing this, the aspects from the dog and the animal, the handler aspects. I mean, this is really high-end professional people putting this together, along with the incredible training that these dogs have had and the handlers. And it's really something. And we are really blessed to be able to do this with the jail population the way it is. We've got to do something in that jail. And this is one of the things I think is probably one of the most innovative things that's ever been done.
Well, I appreciate you coming down. I know you got up early, come down from Kent to do this. And how often is Maxine in the jails, or what's the schedule going to be like?
It's pretty cool on the schedule because I call before I go, and I talk to the booking sergeant to see what's going on in the jail. Is it a good time to come or not? And there's been a few times where she goes, I've got 13 people coming in here to be booked. I don't have time to see you.
Sure.
Don't come. I know you don't go on Mondays because that's a court date. You don't come Friday afternoon because that's when they get their stuff out of the junk store. You don't come at noon, you don't come at 5, you don't come at 8 o'clock. So we're getting the times down pretty good. Ideally, I'd like to be there at least 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh, wow. That would be great. And again, folks are able to take tours of the jail Tuesdays at 10. And it was really nice to meet you, Kevin. And we have Maxine here and Sheriff Salisbury for the Sheriff Sit Down this week and every week. It's brought to you by our Community Credit Union. We'll take a break. We'll be back after this. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.